problem of deforestation and some how we assess our results. I was planning to get rid of this slide because we saw it yesterday several times, but then I noticed that there are new faces, so I think it'll be fine if I show it again. We were talking, I think there's a button here for light, yeah. So we know that the monarchs travel more than 3,000 miles every year to go south in winter in Mexico, and then they go back during the spring to the north. And I'm just speaking of the migratory monarch on the east side of America. So this little spot here, it's what we know as the Oyamel forest, and this is right here. And it's a very, very small patch in Mexico. It's the mixed pine Oyamel forest. The Oyamel is a species called Abies religiosa, the sacred fir, and different pines that I will list later. So as you can see, it's a very, very small area where they have selected to go and spend their winter. So a little bit about the Oyamel forest. These are the conditions that in which you will find the Oyamel forest. These are the most suitable conditions. Please keep in mind that these are Celsius. And as you can see, the annual mean precipitation in the area is really high. And when it rains, it really rains. It's just amazing. It's just like buckets of water coming down. And I will explain why that can be also a problem when there is a severe deforestation in the area. So what happens? This is a graph that I got from some of the federal agencies in Mexico, and where they are explaining how we use the wood in Mexico. So they are saying that most, or the percentage of pine trees is the largest, and they are saying, for instance, that Oyamel, it's about 4.3% of the total use of the wood in Mexico. And that was in 2013. So comparing what it was reported from the same agency between 1997, 98, etc. until 2000 and 2003, this is like an average. We are seeing that the increase in the use of Oyamel forest has happened, and the decrease in the use of pine trees also has happened. So my theory here is that the reason why they are using more Oyamel trees is because there is less pine. So they have to use other resources. Here in this graph, we are seeing how the wood is used, where the main sources, and this is for the area where the monarch overwinters. And this is a report from 2013 as well. About 11% of the use of the wood is for energy. So it's like warming up houses and for food, because they still have these stoves where they have to use wood to cook. And 75% is for building materials. So this is, again, a report from this federal agency in Mexico. And for local participants, this is what they say. So about 55% of the wood that they collect in the area is used for firewood. 30%, about 30% for lumber. Then they use 36% to create furniture, and then 41% for building material. So as you can see, the numbers are a little bit different here. And we're seeing that there is a great need for firewood. shared with human populations. So as we can see, from 1971 to 1999, there was a reduction of the total habitat area for the monarch butterfly of 44%. And unfortunately, I don't have numbers until then, but we know that there is a high deforestation rate still happening. So what's happening in the area is that there is an unsustainable wood harvest. And something that I liked about Lee Davis's talk yesterday, I don't know if he's here, but he was mentioning how sometimes it's really hard to work the human part and then try to restore some areas, because he was mentioning as well that here one of the products to restore the millweed is that there are all these agricultural sites that maybe people would like to restore, but they have to feed their families too, and they have to send their kids to school. In this case, the kids don't even go to school. They just need to eat every day. So the situation, the poverty in this area is really, really high. So this morning I was thinking about it, and I call it the human factor. The estimates that we have for the domestic wood daily demand is that the wood use is between 35 to 50 cubic meters per year per family, or the total annual domestic wood within the monarch reserve, it has been estimated about 200,000 cubic meters per year. So it means that about 100,000 pine and young fir trees are being logged. So what are the problems? One of the main problems is the creation of edge habitats. The fragmentation of the forest creates severe issues and breaks the dynamic into the ecosystem. So in this case, there are several problems caused by that. Somebody was asking me a few days ago, well, what's the problem if they are just cutting a few trees in between, but they are leaving some aisles? Well, these aisles are the big problem. I mean, they leave all the species, not only the monarchs, but other species, endemic species, exposed to predators. They don't have places to hide. And there are also some hydrological problems that I'll explain next. But then, so as I was saying, predators thrive, and also the food resources decrease for the monarchs, because, I mean, somehow the understory is out there as well. So there are no, especially nectar plants. That's what the monarchs use in Mexico to survive. So nectar plants are less in the understory, and of course the soil starts eroding. And also the reproduction needs are not provided. They don't have the places to, for instance, the birds to nest. And this is an example of what happens with the monarchs. It's kind of sad. You see it quite often if you go down there. And it's, I think the amount of monarchs that die in this way is becoming greater and greater, because the birds can spot them easily. So in this case, this kind of bird what does is like they eat just part of the body and leave the monarch just lying there. They can't fly anymore, but you can see the monarch still alive, and it takes for the monarchs to at least 2 days to die. So it's kind of, I know it's nature and it happens, and it has to happen at some point. But when you see that these numbers increase because of the deforestation, then it's when we need to think about it. So the canopy cover is lost. We were talking about it. This is a picture taken in the 70s, in the early 70s. discover Catalina, who was traveling with this other person. Does anybody remember the name? No, Bill Calvert. No, it was her husband.
Brugger. His name's Brugger.
Thank you. So this is how you could see that the monarchs were going around. It was just amazing. It was amazing. And still in 2009, which, by the way, it was when my husband and I had our first date, just right there. And you could still see a lot of monarchs going around. It was amazing, beautiful show. But now this thing is almost a dream. You can't see it at all. You see the monarchs is really nice, but not actually these numbers. And this place, it used to be full of vegetation. And now it's just a bare piece of rock there. And I don't know why, but since it was totally vegetated, people love to take pictures of themselves there. And so from the 70s to now, this is how the rock looks like now. Anyway, regarding the forest hydrology, as I was saying, the patterns are broken as well. So the bare soils reflect more solar radiation that implies harder spots, which is not good even for the monarchs, because we're also breaking the weather that they love to winter, and also for other species, the evapotranspiration rates are broken as well. They are higher. The trees need to cool down, so they need to suck up more water, and there is no water because the creeks and rivers are practically dry. So, which is another problem for the monarchs, because they don't find water to drink. The two main sources of food for them there, or to survive, is the water and the nectar plants. And of course, the elementary is to create their clusters. So, and there is an increment in the erosion rates. So, if erosion is higher, it means that there is some of the soil is being washed, which is also something that you can see here. So I don't know if you have read this. There is this book, which is they mentioned about the problem that there was in Mexico a few years ago. There was this severe landslide during the rain season because the erosion and because there was no kind of cover, so the soil was totally washed out, and a lot of people died and was just totally buried by the mud. So the type of soil that you can find in this area is it's kind of like a clay type soil. So it washes quite easily. It's kind of sticky. It's really hard when it rains. It's just really hard to walk on those grounds. And so because it washes faster and easier, then this is what happens. This kind of erosion is what you can find. And this is the one site where we are trying to do some reforestation and protect the soil, so the soil won't be washed out anymore. So as I was saying, creeks and get dry, and unfortunately you can see monarchs trying to suck up some water even from the mud because they can't find enough water. One of my uncles was telling me a story that when they were kids and my grandmother was taking them to see the monarchs, they used to go there and there were these huge, beautiful, clear water creeks So the monarch butterfly biosphere research zoning, it looks like that somehow. The core zone is just right here. Can you see that it's supposed to be red? So here, and then we have the buffer zone which goes around. But as you can see, all these small squares, what it's showing you is that this is owned land. At some point, this land was owned by the local people. When the problem with the monarchs start just coming out in Mexico in 1986, and the government decided to state that this was a biosphere reserve. This land was taken from their owners. They sort of own the land, but they can't use it. So this is like there are some similar rules here in the US sometimes, right? So that's what happens. They own the land, but they cannot use it, and they're able to use it under certain conditions, and if they have permit from the government. So that becomes a real issue because, as I said, this was the source of food for them. So what happens now is that even if the NBDR is there, sometimes they have to do some illegal cutting of the trees because they need the source of food. Another issue is that the colonies where the monarchs winter had decreased. They were bigger colonies, and now because of the fragmentation of the forest, they have to create the smaller colonies, and some of those colonies are quite isolated. Fortunately, I think so, because we can reach them. They are way high in the mountains, and it's just really hard to get there. And during the winter season, when a lot of tourists go and visit the reserve, they are not allowed to go and see every colony. Normally, the government decides to pick 2 or 3 colonies in in the 2 main sanctuaries, and these are the only colonies that they have access to. So, as I said, this is a big issue because if here in U.S. One of the goals is to increase the number of monarchs that are going to Mexico, then where are they going to overwinter if they don't find enough Oyamel forest? Besides the monarch butterfly, there are other endangered species in the area. This is a list from IUCN. And there are 3 amphibians that are considered endangered, critically endangered, and vulnerable. This small wood rat, which is quite cute, is near threatened. And no, seriously, and it's really cute. I don't like rats, but this one is just cute. Yeah. So, and the monarch butterfly, until now, IUCN has not evaluated the condition of the monarchs, but at least they consider that their migration phenomenon is threatened. So, something that I found really interesting about this list is that, let me see, I don't have my glasses, sorry. So here, the conservation actions from Forest for Monarchs, these are the conservation actions that IUCN suggests for these species. And well, of course, there are no conservation actions for the monarch, but they talk about habitat restoration, land management, and this is what we do. This is exactly what we do. So the way that we are helping not only the monarch butterfly, but also the endangered species is with the habitat restoration, the reforestation, and the sustainable reality is that the local demand of wood is not going to disappear. And because the families grow, and I was reading a few weeks ago that the average family has between 3 and 4 kids. I mean, it's not going to decrease. And they get married too early, like maybe 16, 18 years, and they have 3, 4 kids, and it's just a going on situation. So it's not going to happen. What I think we need to do here, and this is what this program does, is they try to overcome this situation by working with the local people, not telling them you can't use the wood, but showing them and teaching them how to do a sustainable use of their resources. So our conservation strategy, as I was saying, is to provide an economically attractive alternatives to alleviate the wood harvesting pressure on the remaining natural forest. With this idea, what we try to do is divert the attention from the local people from the monarch butterfly biosphere reserve. So how do we work? The way we do it is we start from producing the trees. So we have our own nursery, I'll call it in that way, because not me, I've been working for this nonprofit for 2 years, but most of the group has been working since 1997 in this project. So they consider the local nursery their own nursery. They have partnered in a really nice way. So this local nursery, what does is to create these high quality seedlings, native trees of course, and distribute them to the local people. And the species that we work with, the native species, is the Pinus celtostrobus, the Pinus greigi, or anyways, in Latin would be like Greggy. And actually this one is considered vulnerable by IUCN. And then the Pinus michoacana, the Pinus ayacahuite, which is also listed in the IUCN endangered species, is just of less concern, but they consider that it should be enlisted because of the same issue, which is kind of interesting. It's the same repetitive story. What IUCN is indicating is that even if the ayacahuite is a species that spreads quite easily, because of the deforestation rates, it's disappearing. So it's the same story again. So, and we have the Abies religiosa, of course, which is the oyamel, where the monarchs winter, and the cupressus lie. Well, anyways, let's see. So in this nursery, what they do is that they collect the seeds, and they try to pick those seeds that are healthy seeds, collect the seeds from healthy trees. What happens in the area is that another issue for the trees is what's it called? It's a worm. The bark beetle, sorry. The bark beetle. So they have an issue with bark beetle as well. And around inside the monarch reserve, there are several oyamel trees, many oyamel trees that every year have to be cut down because of the bark beetle. And actually, these are the trees that the local people are allowed to take and sell. So, which is kind of a good deal. They are able to use those trees. But what the government does is that they go inside of the reserve at a certain time during the year. Thank you. And they go select the trees, mark the trees, and then the local people go inside of the reserve and they cut the trees. So if you go at this time during, what season? It's at the end of the year, normally. At the end of the year, you will hear some machines cutting trees inside of the reserve. Don't be to do the cutting. So, well, there's the preparation of the seeds. There's a special preparation. They used organic materials to produce the soil and the nutrients to germinate the seeds. Is my time out? Okay. Anyway, so this is how you will see the nursery working. Normally they start doing this work practically 1 year before the reforestation time, which is around June, July, and August. Actually, it will be like July, August, and maybe September, no June. It's the rainy season. And the other advantage is that the local nursery is able to give jobs to some local people. So that's another source of money for them. So this is our nursery. These are some seedlings of Pinus pseudostrobus. And we have a really good system to irrigate and protect the seedlings. In nurseries, one of the main issues is that the seedlings can be infected by parasites, and then the whole production can just go down. So they have to be really, really careful in that way. So once the seedlings are ready, they are taken out from the starter blocks, the cover starter blocks, and they are packed in normally like 5 small bundles, and then transported and delivered to the people who are in need. What we do is that we give some trees to reforest inside of the monarch butterflyman reserve, and we give a lot of trees to the local people to reforest the land that once was agricultural land. And so in that case, what happens is that they start producing trees, and then a few years later, they're able to sell those trees. It has worked really well. Local people love it. Some of them even, they don't want to cut the trees anymore. So they love what they are doing with their land. They leave the trees alone. Some other, they decide to get permits, they cut the trees, and they ask for more trees so they can restore their land again, and then they wait again a few years and they sell again. So these are some pictures of how it looks during the distribution season. And this is one of our sites during the reforestation. We have campaigns. We try to encourage people to help us, local people. They love it. And we have programs with several schools. The kids love to go and do the reforestation with us. And I heard one of our board members was there for the last planting season, and she loved it. She said that it was quite emotional and very nice to see all those kids so engaged and encouraged, trying to plant the trees. So these are our numbers. As I said, this organization, or at least a group of this organization, start the reforestation in 1997. We're in 2014. We have planted up until now almost 8 million trees. Thank you. So we start with about 7,000 trees, and the maximum trees that we were able to plant before the 1 million trees that we planted last year, it was 743,000 trees. So yeah, it has been a very successful reforestation program. So this is 2 minutes. So, well, with all these trees, we've been able to restore 3,600 hectares, which is about 8,900 acres. And this is a really neat picture. This is the before, or during the first years of the reforestation, and this is how it looks now. So even the soil has it's just amazing. It's beautiful. And this is another site, and as you can see, they are doing really well, even if the soil was totally washed. Just stop me when you think it's time. And this is another neat example. Here, what happened is that we restored an area where the monarchs used to overwinter, and because of the deforestation, they stopped going to that area. And then years later, after the reforestation, they went back there. So, and well, the main outcomes of an evaluation that we have in 2009 is that our growth rate of planted trees is high. We have very high survival rates, and the carbon sequestration is very high too. Anyways, if you guys have time, go and visit the small table which is there on that side. We have flyers and posters, and I need volunteers to hang some posters. If someone has time, please let me know, because we need to plant 1 million trees this year too. Thank you.
Wasn't that great? And you thought you knew everything, right? All right. We are so pleased that she graced us with her presence today to tell about this wonderful program. It gives us hope, right? All right. Just a couple of things real quick before you break. Again, try to retain your seats that you have now. That'll make it a lot faster coming in. I will start promptly. Our next speaker is he's a bear. He cannot stand it for me to take even 30 seconds of his time. So we are going to really need to go. I'm going to have to be very prompt. He watches that clock like a hawk. All right, and so bathrooms.
That was Rebeca. She's the Oleomel tree lady down in the biosphere of Mexico. And of course, we need plenty of trees down there, just like we need plenty of milkweed in North America. Thank you very much.